In the current global political climate, the relationship between North Korea and the United States is teetering on the edge of a knife. The specter of nuclear warfare looms ominously over the world as these two nations grapple with a complex web of issues. Over the past few months, the world has watched, with bated breath, as the relations between these two nations have steadily deteriorated. The catalyst for this escalation is, undoubtedly, North Korea's ambitious nuclear program. Despite international condemnation, the reclusive nation has continued to develop and test nuclear warheads, stoking fears of a potential nuclear conflict. Furthermore, the United States, in an attempt to curtail North Korea's nuclear ambitions, has imposed a series of stringent sanctions. These measures have severely affected North Korea's economy and have only added fuel to the fire, exacerbating the already strained relations. Adding to this volatile mix are the recent peace talks that have ended in a deadlock. Despite several rounds of negotiations, both nations have failed to reach a consensus, leaving the world in a state of uncertainty. This deadlock has only served to heighten the tensions, pushing us closer to the precipice of a potential nuclear catastrophe. As the situation continues to evolve, the world is forced to confront some uncomfortable questions. What happens if North Korea decides to launch a nuclear warhead? How would the United States respond? How much time do they have to react? Where would the missiles strike and what would be the extent of the damage? These questions, though unsettling, are necessary to understand the magnitude of the crisis we're facing. As we delve deeper into this issue, we'll attempt to address these queries, providing a detailed account of the possible scenarios that could unfold. As we stand on the cusp of an unprecedented crisis, one can only wonder about the potential consequences. The world watches, waits, and hopes for a peaceful resolution. But for now, the tension continues to rise, casting a long, dark shadow over the future. Imagine the unthinkable. A nuclear missile is launched by North Korea. Our story continues in the vast expanse of space, home to a network of vigilant sentinels. These are the Defense Support Program satellites, the silent guardians of our skies. They are equipped with infrared sensors that can detect the heat signature of a missile's exhaust plume as it ascends. The moment a missile is detected, an alert is sent back to Earth, to the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, nestled in the heart of the Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. But the job doesn't stop there. To confirm the launch and track the missile's trajectory, the U.S. relies on a ground-based system called the Ground-Based Midcourse Defense, or GMD. This system comprises numerous radars and interceptor missiles deployed across the world, but primarily in Alaska and California. The sea-based X-band radar, a floating, self-propelled, mobile-active, electronically scanned array radar station, pitches in, providing precision tracking and discrimination capabilities. It helps differentiate between the actual warhead and any decoys or debris that might be accompanying it. Then there are the over-the-horizon radars, which provide further tracking and early warning capabilities. They can detect missile launches from thousands of miles away by bouncing radar waves off the ionosphere. This allows them to see over the horizon, hence their name. These systems work in concert, each playing a critical role in the detection, tracking, and if necessary, interception of incoming threats. The data they gather is analyzed by teams of experts, who then advise the President and the National Security Council on the best course of action. But remember, all this happens in a matter of minutes, sometimes seconds. The clock starts ticking the moment the missile leaves the North Korean soil. This is a race against time where every second counts and the stakes couldn't be higher. The clock starts ticking the moment the missile leaves the North Korean soil. In such a crisis, every second counts. The United States, with its advanced early detection systems, has approximately 15 to 30 minutes to respond to a nuclear missile launch. This window of time is a blend of precision technology and high-stakes strategy. It's a race against the clock, a clock that ticks down faster than any of us could possibly imagine. At the first sign of a missile launch, the data is immediately relayed to the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD. This complex, nestled deep within Cheyenne Mountain, Colorado, is always on high alert, ready to respond to any threat. Here, military experts analyze the incoming data, confirming the threat, determining the missile's trajectory, and estimating its potential impact point. Once the threat is confirmed, the information is whisked to the Pentagon and the White House. In what might be the most intense minutes of their lives, the President, the Secretary of Defense, and key military advisors must make a decision. This isn't just any decision, it's a decision that could determine the fate of millions. The United States has a policy known as launch on warning. This means that if there's a confirmed missile launch, the US may decide to retaliate even before the incoming missile strikes. This policy is designed to deter an enemy strike, but it's a decision that must be made in mere minutes. In these crucial moments, the decision-makers consider the data, weigh the options, and make their choice. It's a delicate balance of defense and diplomacy, a dance on the razor's edge of war and peace. And so, in the face of a nuclear threat, the United States has a response time measured not in hours, but in minutes. These are the most critical minutes, where every second is precious, every decision momentous. The fate of millions hangs in the balance during these crucial moments. The trajectory of the missile is calculated, the strike zone is determined, and with that, we enter a chilling reality where the potential targets of a North Korean missile strike come under scrutiny. In an unthinkable scenario, one must consider the most likely targets. The missile's trajectory would likely be aimed at major US military bases in the Pacific and Alaska, or densely populated cities on the West Coast, such as Los Angeles or San Francisco. The heartbreaking truth is that these targets are not selected at random. They are chosen for their strategic importance or for the sheer devastation their loss would inflict. The potential damage and casualties are almost too horrifying to consider. They depend heavily on the size and type of the nuclear warhead. Let's take a moment to understand this. North Korea's nuclear arsenal is believed to range from small tactical nukes, similar in size to the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, to larger, more powerful thermonuclear weapons. If a smaller Hiroshima-sized bomb were to detonate in a densely populated city like Los Angeles, the initial blast could result in hundreds of thousands of casualties. The immediate vicinity would be obliterated, with buildings reduced to rubble within a 1-mile radius. The subsequent radiation fallout would spread for miles, causing long-term health effects and making the area uninhabitable for years. On the other hand, if a larger thermonuclear weapon were used, the devastation would be exponentially greater. The initial blast could level entire cities, while the heat could cause third-degree burns in areas over 10 miles away from the epicenter. The radioactive fallout could cover an area of hundreds of square miles, rendering it uninhabitable for decades. Even with these grim projections, it's important to remember that these are worst-case scenarios. Our global community has safeguards and strategies in place to prevent such a catastrophe. However, understanding the potential consequences underscores the importance of continued diplomatic efforts and nuclear disarmament. The impact of the missile strike would be catastrophic. The stark reality of this potential situation is a sobering reminder of the devastating power of nuclear weapons and the importance of striving for a world free of them. The US is not without its defenses. In the event of a nuclear attack, America employs a range of tactical solutions designed to neutralize a threat before it hits American soil. These countermeasures vary, from the ground-based mid-course defense system, which intercepts missiles during their flight outside the atmosphere, to the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD, which intercepts missiles during their descent. But let's not forget about the Aegis Ballistic Missile Defense System. This sea-based platform can detect and eliminate missiles during their ascent, mid-course, and descent phases. Aegis-equipped ships are strategically placed across the globe, providing a robust defense against missile threats. However, should these defenses fail, the US has the capability to launch a counterstrike. This would involve the deployment of its own nuclear weapons, targeting key strategic sites within North Korea. It's a chilling scenario, but one that is factored into military planning. The consequences of such a counterstrike would be profound, and not just for North Korea. The fallout from nuclear explosions can spread across borders, affecting neighboring countries. Such a response from the US could escalate the conflict, drawing in other nations and potentially triggering a global conflict. In this grim scenario, the US would likely seek diplomatic solutions first, in an attempt to de-escalate the situation. However, if diplomacy fails, military action remains on the table. The US maintains a triad of nuclear forces: land-based missiles, submarine-launched missiles, and strategic bombers. This triad ensures that the US has the capacity to retaliate, even if one or two of these systems are compromised. This triad of forces is always on alert, ready to respond within minutes to an order from the president. The decision to launch a counterstrike is not taken lightly. It's a decision that could change the world as we know it. In the face of a nuclear threat, the US is prepared to respond. It's a sobering reality, but one that underscores the importance of diplomacy and conflict prevention in our increasingly interconnected world. The dust settles, the damage is assessed. The aftermath of a nuclear strike is something no one wants to imagine, but it's a reality that must be faced in our hypothetical scenario. The immediate emergency response is crucial, with local, national, and international teams rushing to provide aid and assess the situation. First responders would be the brave souls venturing into the fallout zone, risking their lives to save others. They would search for survivors, provide medical care, and begin the difficult process of decontamination. Local hospitals would be overwhelmed, and medical aid from across the country and around the world would be deployed. But the aftermath of a nuclear strike isn't confined to the immediate vicinity. The real danger lies in the fallout, the radioactive particles that are carried by the wind and can contaminate large areas. This fallout can cause radiation sickness, long-term health problems, and environmental damage. In the face of such a disaster, every effort would be made to evacuate people from the affected areas and provide them with life-saving care. The cleanup process would be a monumental task. Decontamination teams would work tirelessly to remove radioactive particles from buildings, roads, and soil. This work would take years, perhaps decades, to complete. The affected areas may never be the same. And then, there are the long-term effects. A nuclear strike would leave an indelible mark on the psyche of the nation. The physical damage can be repaired, but the emotional scars run deep. Recovery would mean not just rebuilding infrastructure, but also supporting the mental health of survivors, restoring faith in national security, and working towards a future where such an event can never happen again. In the face of a nuclear strike, the resilience of humanity would be tested like never before. But history has shown us that even in the darkest times, people come together and find a way to move forward. A nuclear strike is not the end. It's the beginning of a long and arduous recovery. Let's revisit the key points discussed in this video. We've taken a hypothetical journey, exploring the rising tensions between North Korea and the United States. Our scenario began with a chilling spark, a nuclear missile launched by North Korea, a scenario none of us want to see become a reality. The detection of such a launch is a complex process. The US utilizes a sophisticated network of satellites, radars, and ground-based sensors to detect and track any missile activity. This system operates around the clock, vigilantly scanning the skies for any threats. As soon as a launch is detected, the clock starts ticking. The US response time is crucial. From the moment of detection, the US has less than 30 minutes to make some of the most critical decisions in human history. This is the time it would take for a missile to travel from North Korea to the mainland United States. The strike zone, the area where the missile is projected to land, is determined through complex calculations and predictive modeling. The extent of the damage depends on numerous factors, including the size of the warhead, the altitude of detonation, and the population density of the strike zone. The counterstrike is the US's retaliation, a decision that would not be taken lightly. The aim would be to neutralize the threat and prevent any further attacks, while minimizing the risk of escalating the conflict. And finally, the aftermath. The effects of a nuclear strike are devastating and far-reaching. The immediate impact is just the beginning, with radiation sickness, environmental damage, and long-term health effects to consider. The social, political, and economic implications would reverberate around the world. In the face of a nuclear threat, preparedness and knowledge are our best defenses. By understanding these processes, we can better appreciate the gravity of nuclear warfare and the importance of diplomatic resolutions to conflicts. Let's hope that this knowledge remains purely theoretical, never to be put into practice.